Welcome to the 2021 edition of Champions Talk, a fundraiser for the New York Race Track Chaplaincy. You are about to see and hear fascinating tales about the lives and riding careers of some of our sport's all-time leading riders. We as an industry and we as a society have encountered severe obstacles over the past 18 months or so, namely in the form of the unimaginable COVID-19 pandemic. We have learned that our common bond, the love of the thoroughbred, is a strong one. As the pandemic recedes, we give thanks for what we have, and we look forward to brighter days ahead. Right now, we will hear some fond memories from our panel of distinguished guests. We turn the program over to our moderator, the unconquerable, invincible, unbeatable Tom Durkin.
I would like to introduce our four champion panelists. Immediately to my left is Chris McCarron, 7,141 wins. Eclipse Awards. And he is also in the Hall of Fame. Angel Cordero Jr., 7,057 wins. 13 riding championships at Saratoga. I don't think that'll ever be beaten. Eclipse Award winner, Hall of Fame, Angel Cordero Jr. Jorge Velasquez, 6,795 wins. Eclipse Award and Hall of Fame member. Richard Migliori, a mere 4,450.
I have win envy.
He'd be up over 8,000 by now, but he fell off a horse one too many times, and they had to call his career a little short, much to our sadness. And now turned into he was a first-rate jockey. I can tell you, he is a first-rate television analyst. And he's just, it was like you were doing it in all your life, from horseback, to the microphone. He's just done great. We'll start out with you, Chris. You wanted to be a hockey player.
I did indeed. When I was growing up in Boston, Bobby Orr was my hero. He was a rookie in the league at 18 years of age, and I was 11 at the time. I played hockey until I was about a sophomore in high school, and I got my butt kicked out there quite a few times. So I decided I wasn't fast enough or good enough or big enough to really be any good at it. So I do remember the first race that myself and my family were ever interested in was the Kentucky Derby in 1969. My brother Greg had become good friends with Bill Hardtack,
Majestic Prince,
who was riding Majestic Prince, yeah. And Greg was home that day, and he was screaming, "Come on, Bill! Come on, Bill!" And just watching his excitement over a race, which I had never really paid any attention to before, right, was pretty exciting. Yeah. So fortunately, I was able to pursue a career that I was pretty good at.
Yeah, I'll say. And you rode some pretty good horses, and one of my faves, a crowd fave, John Henry, I'm sure.
Yeah. I certainly can't take any credit for his success, though, because this guy right here rode him. You rode him once, didn't you?
Yeah,
Twice. He had 17 different jockeys in his career. He ran over 50 times.
But you had him pretty much at the end of his career?
I did. I rode him the last 2 years of his career. I rode him 14 times, won 8 races on him. The most amazing stat about John Henry's career is that he earned $2.3 million, or 1/3 of his total earnings, which were $6.5 million. He earned 2.3 in one season. What season do you think that was? His last, as a 9-year-old.
And did not run in the Breeders' Cup. He was supposed to run in the Breeders' Cup, and he wasn't nominated. So you had to pay a big. Oh, I don't know.
$130,000.
Well, yeah, actually it was $260, but you had to pay the $130 10 days in.
Correct.
And then the day before they put the entries in the box, his owner had to pay another $130. Well, he paid the first 130,000, and then the horse got sick.
Oh, he got hurt.
Yeah.
He strained his ankle a little bit, and he was retired then. Yeah.
And that was that. But think of how much money he could have run if he had some Breeders' Cup money going on.
Yeah, right.
That was the very first Breeders' Cup. And just one of my favorite races was Ferdinand and Ali Sheba.
That wasn't one of mine.
Yeah. Well, you did win a few after that, including the Midnight Classic. Tell people how dark that was at Churchill Downs. They screwed up. Somebody didn't figure out what daylight savings time was at Churchill Downs in 1988, and it was running almost complete darkness.
It was pretty dark, and it was a dark, overcast day the whole day. And as the sun was going down, the really good evidence to see how dark it was. Watch the replay, and when you see the horses cross the finish line, there's this big bright light right just there at the finish line, and it was pretty dark. But fortunately, Ali Sheba could see where he was going.
Yeah. And you had a big scare with Ali Sheba in the Derby.
Yeah, he was a great athlete. He was able to right himself after clipping heels. It very easily could have been what happened in Midnight Bourbon a couple days ago, but he clipped heels pretty good. And he was able to right himself. And I've had people say, wow, he did an amazing job picking him back up. He weighs 1,000 pounds. I can't pick him back up. All a rider can do, in my opinion, in that situation is get out of his way, So all I did was I sat back, I let my tail hit the saddle, and I tried to get out of his way a little bit so he could, pick himself up and right himself. And he went on to victory.
Of all the amazing things that you guys do as jockeys, it's that split-second reaction time that you have. It's amazing to me that you can think on your toes, actually.
Well, it's amazing what fear can do for you.
And just getting back to Ferdinand and Ali Sheba, they finished, two Derby winners hit the wire together, and didn't you and Shu make a bet at that point?
No.
A save?
Yeah. We sometimes in situations like that, the jockeys would look at each other and say, if they didn't know who won it, it'd say, "Would you like to save?" So Shu looked over at me and said, "Hey, McCarron, you want to save?" I said, "Sure," because neither one of us knew who won it. And so he says, "How much?" I said, "How about a nickel?" And he said, "Make it a dime." So
that wasn't 5 cents or 10 cents.
So he ended up beating me. So instead of Shu taking the money, he told me to donate it to the Don Macbeth Memorial Jockey Fund.
Oh, there you go.
So I wrote a check for $10,000 to the Macbeth Fund.
Before we go any further, let's take a quick time out for our sponsors.
New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association has been a proud supporter of virtually every program that the New York Race Track Chaplaincy administers. The New York Chaplaincy would like to thank Kip Levin and all of our friends at TVG for their continuous support of backstretch programs throughout the country, especially those at the New York Race Track Chaplaincy.
All right, Chris, there's your cue card. I want you to make a play for some money to the folks out there in the audience.
Certainly. Please, folks, please step up to the plate and contribute to the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America, New York branch. You can do so online at rtcany.org or call this number, 516-216-5196. Get your wallets out.
Attaboy. Thank you, sir. Let us move on to Angel Cordero Jr. When you first came to New York, the big jockey at that time was, back in the 60s, Eddie Belmonte. And he didn't think you had a chance, did he?
Well, I guess he was trying to keep me here because I kept leaving, going back to Puerto Rico. So I guess that's the only way that he would have held me in here.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I told him that I was leaving, and I said, well, you better leave New York for good riders only. So that,
New York is for good riders only. Well,
that
that's
was
still the case, but you
Yeah.
made the grade, that's for sure. When you first came to the United States from Puerto Rico, you wound up eating a lot of ham and eggs. Tell that story.
Well, it's very hard when you come from Puerto Rico. The only English you hear is going to school, and you have your choices. When you go to high school, do you want to take English or not? So no, I don't speak no English at all. Window, floor, teacher, all that. And I could not eat anything. When I went into the kitchen, everybody was asking, and the only thing I remember was ham and eggs. So it was easy for me. So my friend told me one day, "Why you always have ham and eggs?" I said, "I don't know how to say anything else." He said, "Just point it to him." So I go there, and there's a lot of people say, "What do you want?" And I'm pointing like that. He said, "What is it?" I said, "Ham and egg." So that's it. I give up quick. It's hard for us because we come from a Spanish country, very warm. We don't have the closing to be in the United States. We don't know anybody. And plus, I went to live in 125th Street and 2nd Avenue in the projects. So I was had to get up at 4 o'clock to make it at 6 o'clock to Belmont. So it was kind of hard at the beginning because when you don't speak English, you talk to people and they look
That's
at you.
126th and 2nd, that's Spanish Harlem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my sister used to write me the address on a piece of paper. So every time I got lost, I would show the address to somebody and they would give, left. They left me the same.
Wow. I wouldn't do that now in New York, the way things are going. Wouldn't can you take me here? Oh, sure. You won the 100th Kentucky Derby, horse called Cannonade, an announcer's nightmare with 23 horses. Woody Stevens, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But you had a dream the night before.
Yeah, I guess. You want to win the Derby so bad, When you ride the Derby, you go to bed thinking about, that you want to win it. And I had a dream that my father always wanted to see me win the Derby, and he died the year before. And I had a dream that he told me that they was making a movie, and I was going to be the good guy, and they're going to open the ring for you, you stay on the rail. When I got up that morning, the dream was right there, they didn't forget anything. But when I look at the
for the Derby.
When I look at the racing phone, I said, on the fence, 23 horses. And they didn't have a grass course, so, the people hanging around the fence. And it warmed them up. It was kind of, I was thinking about it, but I said, man, what if one of them guys runs underneath the fence, get in the middle? All these things come to your mind. But I happened to get left. I got pitched out of the gate, and I was like 17 going to the first 10, so I heard the voice again, stay inside. I said, I'm going to take a shot. And took a shot, and, got through on every horse except the last one. So things happen, the same thing when I used to get hurt. I used to dream that I was going to get hurt. It's not fun. It's fun when you know you're going to win it before the race. You have that feeling, but it's not fun when you know you're going to get hurt because you cannot stay home because the next day, on the next day.
Yeah, you can't tell your agent, I had a bad dream last night. I'm not going to work today.
No, that doesn't
People
work.
have to see the race, though. You can go on YouTube and watch it was a 74 Derby, Cannonade. Watch this ride. One of the most spectacular, much like Georgie's first Derby win with, your Derby win with Pleasant Colony, sliding through the field, never getting stopped. I mean, amazing rides, just like Chris's ride on Ali Schieber, but, except for the one hiccup that you guys overcame.
Yeah. You were buddies with Howard Cosell. He actually went to your house a couple times.
Twice he came to my house. I was lucky because he used to tell me that he goes, I don't go to nobody's house. But for some reason, he came to the house and he told me that he was going to do an interview with me that I had to maybe believe that he was live, that he was going to ask me a question. So he was saying, Angel Cordero. Everybody hated him after the Preakness. Now they compare you to Eddie Arcaro. Had you ever did anything dishonest? I said, well, I used to still hook up and when I was a kid, and he got very upset. But he told me if I ever did anything dishonest, that's dishonest, right? Going to the fountain and get the money that people throw in there. But I don't do it anymore, so change.
I'm going to tell you guys something that's really amazing. It's going to be the most amazing thing you've heard today. That man's 79 years old.
90.
Thank you. And let's have our sponsors say a big thank you.
John Hendrickson and his late wife, Mary Lou Whitney, always kept a special place in their hearts for the backstretch community. The Jockey Club Safety Net Foundation has been providing assistance on a confidential basis to backstretch workers and their families since it was formed in 1943. West Point Thoroughbreds is proud to sponsor Champions Talk and congratulates Irad Ortiz on his recognition. Blue Devil Racing is a valued sponsor of the New York Race Track Chaplaincy and Champions Talk.
George, Jorge Velasquez, you prefer Jorge or George?
Whatever is easier for you.
Well, George, that's my,
Okay.
my native name, so
That's-
George. You guys are both big boxing fans, no?
Yeah.
Or
used
you
to
were
go-
at one
we
time.
used to go
Yeah.
a lot too.
He got me into
watch
trouble one
boxing.
time too.
How'd that happen?
I tell him. I went to his house after the races and he had Roberto Duran in there. They was playing dominoes. And one of the guys that worked for Duran said that he was training for Sugar Ray Leonard's first fight. Do you guys want to come in the gym and take some picture with him for publicity? He said, maybe you get some tickets to go. So I like the idea. He said, bring some shorts and sneakers. So the man was on there, I got there first. And Duran was sparring partner. And he was like knocking down people back and forth. So the trainer was mad at him and said, look, now you don't have anybody to help you. So he said, you want to take a picture with your friend? And they put gloves on me and we standing like this, But it was to take a picture. And it wasn't, and he went like that to me, and I raised my hand and he just, ting, boom.
Oh!
And he hit me here. He said he hit me slow. That's okay, but that's Duran. Man, I thought the glove came through here. And the man didn't come. He didn't come and help you, nothing. He don't show up.
George, you're from Panama, and a lot of great jockeys were from Panama. Now, how come?
I don't know if it's the air or why is it that so many good riders come from there.
But they have the school.
They do.
Oh, that's right. There's
Before
a
Puerto
jockey
Rico
school?
have a school, Panama got the school. So
They
you
do,
guys was very in
but
advance.
you know what happened is that when you start riding as a buck boy or apprentice, they all be watching the race, and they're like, ooh, they make fun of you when you stand up and you're not looking good on the horse and you're hitting too much of that. So they criticize you and they make you feel bad about it, so you have to get better. You have to improve so you don't look bad on the horses and you do the right thing and you become successful.
So, this young whippersnapper is 16 years old. He walks in the jockey's room. Now, do you mentor somebody like that? I mean, he's your competitor, but were you a help to Richard and others as
Georgie
well?
was.
Was he?
Georgie was. Not the guy on his right.
Yeah, don't do it. The guy on the right. Never.
Well, Chris was in California, but he would come in the fall.
So you were a mentor to.
Well, in a ways, because after certain races, he comes back and he asks me a question. What about this horse? What about it? And then I can more or less help him out. This horse looks in, he looks out, do this, do that, but he asks questions. So I was willing to answer and try to help him out because he's just coming up.
But that, this is a
It was
guy
a
who you're trying to
competition.
beat when you go out there.
Oh, I have confidence in myself.
But also it creates a safer environment when an older rider helps a younger rider. You don't want to go to this spot. You don't have ownership of the inside position if you're not all the way up in there, going to the turn. Different little things that are just going to create a safer environment on the racetrack while you're out there. it was always a big deal in the fall. A lot of the top riders from California, and Chris was riding in California by then. Lafitte would come, Chris, Shu would come in for big races and ride Meadowlands night and day. And, Chris was always very helpful then. Angel and I have so much respect and love for each other. But when I was a bug boy, he wasn't going to help you. He was going to make it as hard as he could on you. But over time, I think he realized that I was very serious about the craft. And I always say this, starting out in New York with the amount of talented riders that were there at the time was a blessing and a curse. It was a curse because hard to compete against them, hard to get good mounts, because there were so many good riders. But you were going to learn to be a good rider if you had any affinity for it at all. They were going to rub off on you, just the way they did things, their approach, their habits, watching them. Wow, I like the way he does that. I want to try to do it like that. And you learn from them. So unless you had no natural ability whatsoever, you had to learn to be a good rider.
One of the big reasons for any jockey's success, you got to give a lot of credit to agents. And you had Vic Chilardi for how long?
23 years. And that's because I left the USA. I went to France with some kind of contract. So when I came back, my man got it.
He was my agent.
I was without an agent then.
But you rode for all the big outfits, Green Tree, Calumet, Darby Dan, Alydar, who I think might not have been the best horse you rode, but maybe the most famous because Affirmed and Alydar go hand in hand.
Well, actually, he was the best horse I ever rode.
He was?
Yes, definitely. And I rode a lot of good ones. But he was special. It was like a push button. We developed such a close, he was like my son, I walk in the barn and I hide myself behind the tree and he's like, and I'm like, hey champ, hey champ, hey champ. And this is way before he ran his first time, but I used to gallop him. So I'm hiding myself and hey champ, and he can't see me. So he comes out of trying to come out of the stall and he's like, and he started jumping up and down and running around the stall and John Rich said, Georgie, you better come out of there, he's gonna get hurt. So, but I used to, every day that I get on him, we pull up and I always carry sugar with me. So I have the sugar and I give it to him. So I guess he knew my voice, and every time I come back to the barn, I give him sugar. He's walking around and he's trying to cool him off, and I'm in the corner talking to somebody, and he's dragging the hat walker to where I was because he wants the sugar. So, and every time he do that, I have to come out with the sugar. So I was ready for him all the time.
You should have put a sugar
He
out.
retired.
You on the wire.
Yeah, should have had a stick with some sugar out there.
Like the old Marx Brothers movies that put the carrot out in front of them.
I have an Alydar sugar story. I was 14 years old, and first summer I'm galloping horses at Belmont. He was riding the Triple Crown already. Charlie Rose said, hey kid, I was by the barn there, you want to give Alydar a piece of sugar? Sure, Alydar. Gave him a piece of sugar, he ate the sugar, and he grabbed me by my chest and almost ripped my shirt off. I was bleeding, I still have the scar.
You have a scar from Alydar?
From Alydar.
Oh.
I was a firm fan ever since, that was it.
Well, the Travers coming up, and that was a most memorable Travers, Affirmed Alydar. You want to take us through that one?
Well, somebody that is in my right-hand side.
Who did they go on?
We're going to the backside, and his horse started drifting out. And he's taking
Lafitte.
He's taking Lafitte
Affirmed. Yeah.
out. We get into the 4.5, and I'm watching everything. He's taking him out. So now, I said, well, I'm going to drop in to save the ground. Saving the ground. We got to the 3.5, and Lafitte got tired of being taken out by this guy, and Lafitte just drop in because he knows that I'm coming, but he didn't know exactly how fast my horse was running. So he dropped in, and when he dropped in, he bounced me off the fence, and well, I went from second all the way back to fifth.
He was going to a fire.
Come back to fifth, but he came running at the end and he finished second.
How much did he, well, he wound up winning by disqualification, but how much in the end did he
He beat me
lose
by maybe a length.
Wow, after that.
Because I dropped back, way back for 6-8 lengths and came back running again. And
It was impossible the way his horse caught his stride, Tom. I got left behind at Belmont that summer with the second division of horses, but I had the day off after the Travers, so I jumped on a horse van at 10:30 in the morning, got here about the fifth race, first time I ever got to Saratoga, and I watched the Travers from the 3/8 pole on the backstretch. And when he came out of there,
that was right where it happened.
Yeah, I was right there. I thought he had broken down because the way he came out of there so dramatically. And then he caught his stride in 2 strides. It was unbelievable, and he was back in the race. So it speaks to the athlete Aladar was, the athlete that Georgie is, but he had no right to even get back in the race. So the fact that he re-rallied to be second was amazing. That was my first time in Saratoga, crashed in a friend's room, worked for Mike Hernandez that night, Carlos Figueroa. Went to the old Firehouse Steakhouse for dinner that night. Thought, like, where's this place been my whole life?
we developed such a good relationship that he retired. I didn't have a chance. I was too busy riding, so I didn't have a chance to go back and see him. So finally, about 7 years later, I made the trip to Kentucky. And I went to the farm, and I'm by the fence, and it's about 100 yards away from me. And I'm like, hey, Chad. He picked up his head, and he charged. He came running to me.
No,
Awesome.
And he's looking for the shoe. I didn't have the shoe. I didn't have the shoe, and then he pinned it. I went to touch his head, and he pinned his back, and he's trying to bite me. And I said, oh, I know, wait. I know what you want. So I ran to the office. I got the sugar. I called him back, and he came back, and then it was my best friend again.
That's great.
Oh, it was something else.
We were going to have a fifth jockey today, but unfortunately, Laffy Pinkai Jr. Could not make it, and he is now going to, by way of video, send regrets.
Well, send some money, Lafitte.
Hi, I'm sorry I won't be able to be with you at the Champion Talk. That was something that I was looking forward to and come up with some great stories, but I know you all gonna have some good ones to tell. I also know that the Chaplaincy of New York does a great job, and they would provide a good event to support the people of the backstretch community. Thank you so much.
We have not forgotten Richard Migliore. We'll be talking with him in just a moment. But first, we'd like to honor Irad Ortiz, today's one of the preeminent jockeys today. And Ramon Dominguez presented Irad with the award a short while ago, and we're going to take a look at that right now.
Irad Ortiz is an excellent example of leadership on and off the track. His accomplishments on the racetrack are so many, between 3 consecutive Eclipse Awards, 11 Breeders' Cup races, having won the Belmont Stakes, a couple back-to-back riding titles in Naira, and the list goes on and on and on. However, that is just as important as it is for him, his personal and family time, and being able to give back to the backstretch. And that became very evident when the pandemic was happening, because he came on board and he emerged and as the leader that he is, and contribute greatly to the chaplaincy in many different ways. And this is something that represents, again, not only his attributes on the racetrack, but equally important outside the racetrack with his family and his second family, the racetrack.
First, I want to say thank you for this honor. I feel grateful to be available to do what I love every day out there. But anything of that will not possible without the help of all the workers in the backstretch, especially the grooms, the assisted riders. And I really appreciate that. Thank you for this. I'm so happy. They are like my second family. I really love the people in the backside. They give me a lot of support, and that's the only way probably I can pay them back or whatever, or support the chaplain. I love what the chaplain does. He's always there with them. Thank you very much.
And now we're going to have a solicitation from Jorge Velasquez. Señor.
Por favor, hagan su donación al www.rtcany.org. Llame a este número 516-216-5196.
And now we would like to, again, thank all the people that are really making this possible today, our sponsors.
The New York Race Track Chaplaincy is grateful for the support of thoroughbred owner Saul Kuman. The Borisnak Family Foundation helps people in need by supporting programs that foster independence and enhance quality of life. We extend our deep gratitude to Louis Lazanero, Andy Serling, Anthony Stabile, Kirk Wyckoff, and everyone involved in the legendary inaugural Saratoga Mini Golf Tournament.
And up next, he was a champion, won an Eclipse Award as a young guy. Well, it's either two ways. It's Richard Migliore or Richard Migliori. In Italian, I used to have fun with him and Joe Bravo. In Italian, bravo means good, but Migliori means better. I can't even believe this was legal. You were under contract at age 14?
I went to Belmont Park, galloped a horse for Roger Lauren first, and he sent me to gate 6, and I didn't know that you had to be 16 to be there. And when they saw that I was, I filled out the paperwork that I was 14, they were like, whoa, you're too young. He wanted to send me to Holly Hill, South Carolina, to his dad, Lucian, had a training center there. And I just had gotten off the farm and got to Belmont and galloped the horse on the main track. I said, I don't want to do that. So I went back to school to finish the last 2 weeks of school, 8th grade. And I knew that they had working papers in the guidance counselor's office for summer jobs. And I knew where he kept them. So I asked him some questions, and he went to get my file, and I got the draw, and I got the working papers that said I was 16.
Wow.
And I went back to Belmont 2 weeks later, and I went to John Nehru, but he had Danny Foley was his bug boy. I went to E.I. Kelly, and he said, he doesn't take on bug boys, but the Italian guy next door does. That was Steve DeMauro. And I went in there, and I galloped the horse for him, and he said, okay, you got the job. Went back to gate 6, hoping no one would recognize me, gave them the paperwork, signed out the thing. They gave me a temporary badge. I had the room, which ironically enough is John Kimmel's barn. His secretary, Loretta Lustig, who I've known since then, she galloped horses for us. Her office was my room. I have a closet bigger than that room now. But and I was there for like 10 days. And I was cooking dinner in the room on a hot plate. You're not supposed to cook in those rooms. And a security guard came and knocked on the door and wanted, I immediately thought, because I was cooking. So I'm trying to hide my stuff. And then I thought about, I hadn't gotten my real badge yet. I said, oh gosh, they found out I'm not old enough to be here. So I started spilling my guts. Listen, you don't understand. I want to be a jockey really bad. And he goes, kid, your mother called the farm you were at. They said you left to Belmont. You better call home. He didn't know what I was talking about. They called home. You got to come home. Nah, that ain't happening. I'm going to be a jockey. And I got her to acquiesce, and I stayed and basically lived. That's why the racetrack chaplaincy is so important, too, by the way. I lived at Belmont Park when I was 14 years old till I was 17 on the backstretch. I was leading rider at Aqueduct, taking a horse van back from Aqueduct to Belmont, getting out of gate 6. And you are part of a community. You are part of a family. I got an apartment about a mile from Belmont when I was 17 with Steve DeMauro Jr., my contract holder's son. And he had a girlfriend in Philadelphia. He was never there. He was always going to Philadelphia. I still didn't have a driver's license. One night there was a shootout in the apartment above us because a drug deal had gone bad. The next day I moved back to the back church. It was safer.
Now, you had obviously a sensational apprentice year, and then you kind of had a sophomore slump, like many apprentice jockeys do.
I hit the wall. Had a great bug year. Was leading rider in New York for the year. Went to Florida with my contract holder and just didn't like Florida. I was doing okay, but just wanted to be in New York, and I wound up leaving, and we kind of had a falling out, me and Mr. DeMauro, and I wound up having to buy my contract. So I bought my way out of the contract, but now I went from having his support. And you got to understand, he gave me instant credibility. He was coming off of years of having Wajima, Dealey Precious, big horses. To put a kid under contract said, that kid's okay. So other trainers paid attention. So he gave me instant credibility. I was probably a little brash, a little hot-headed young guy. And so when I bought my way out of the contract, I went from losing the bug and losing my stable at the same time. And I think I went from winning 298 races the year before New York to 75. The next year was even worse, maybe 50. And then it started coming back around, and then 85 I was leading rider again. But it took a lot of work. And a lot of young guys leave New York, apprentices, after they lose the bug and they struggle, but they're not from New York originally. I was from New York originally, so I think it was easier for me to kind of dig in and say, no, I'm going to make this work. And I was galloping a filly for a trainer who will remain nameless, and I was doing terrible. And she was a New York bred, and I rode her in June in an open company, and she ran second. She bucked her shins. Middle of Saratoga, she starts galloping again. I'm galloping her every day. We get into September. She's going to run. I'm supposed to ride a horse at the Meadowlands for the same trainer that Saturday night, but my oldest brother's getting married. I said, I can't go ride that horse. Well, if you don't go ride her, you can't ride the good one. I went to my brother's wedding, didn't eat, didn't drink, left the wedding, drove to the Meadowlands to ride the last race. Horse ran no good. He entered the horse for Wednesday, and he named an apprentice on, not me.
Oh, dear.
And I was devastated. I was like, how can someone do that? I left my brother's wedding to keep him happy so I could ride this horse. And the horse won by 8. I was leaving. I was done. I quit. I had a little money squirreled away. I was going to buy a cabin and go live in the mountains and not talk to anybody ever again. And I was in my apartment packing up that night, and my girlfriend showed up. And she talked me into staying. Married 35 years.
Now, Angel, you won the Saratoga title 13 times, but he almost beat you a couple times.
Yeah, he did. He got hurt one time.
Yeah, when I had the bug.
Yeah.
I thought I had you that time. Actually, Georgie, it was the second to last day of the meet, or third to last day of the meet, you had Before Dawn in the spin-away. I rode every race but the spin-away with the bug. And Georgie went down in the second race and broke his collarbone. And John Veach came down to the jocks room, and he had like 3 viable options: Greg, McCarron, Chris's brother, me, and Mike Venezia. And I'm standing there like, man, give me this shot, give me this shot. And he put the kid on the horse. I just picked up Before Dawn in the spin-away. Well, about an hour later, I was laying in a gurney next to him. I went down in the third race.
Oh.
And we were both in Saratoga Hospital, and then Angel beat me one winner. Yeah. And actually, Eddie Maple creeped up into a tie, and there was a 3-way tie, and I'm listening to it on the radio in Saratoga Hospital, and Angel beat Eddie in neck, I think, in the mile and 5/8 race they used to run. Yeah, you rode
Great Neck and, yeah, the Saranac.
No, yeah, I think it was the Saranac.
Saranac.
So then me and Eddie tied for second, and Angel won it.
So when jockeys, assuming you're like everybody else, you handicap the race and stuff like that, but you guys handicap other jockeys. Can you handicap these guys? What are you going to look for him to do, or what kind of habits that they would have that you could, take advantage of, or what?
Well, the most important thing when you're riding against this guy is you can't you can't let him get into your head, because he will really try hard to get into your head. He was an intimidator on the track. He certainly was, and I learned a lot from him when I rode with him and rode against him. You pay attention to the different habits guys might have, and different. You try to figure out which way they're going to think and stuff. But a lot of times you can overthink that as well, and you're better off just going out there and riding the best race you can. But nobody could ride 3 horses in a race better than Angel Cordero.
Would you guys agree? You guys both rode
Well, I'll
with
tell you what,
Angel?
No, not this guy.
I used to love when we break and I see him laying like 3rd or 4th, and I'm way back because I used to come from behind all the time. So I'm watching and I see Angel in position. He's like 3rd or 4th. I know he's gonna tie it up. He's gonna make those guys tight. So I say I'm not gonna go try to go inside because he's gonna come in and expect. He comes in, he ties up everybody, and then I come around.
So you did the old end around and he did the interference.
All riders have strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, these 3 gentlemen had far more strengths than weaknesses. You don't compile those kind of numbers and win the races they did without being great. Chris, to me, was always so incredible position-wise, tactically. You know, if I found myself in behind him, I wanted to follow him. Angel was so strong and get horses to overperform. I always thought you got horses to do more than they might have even been capable to do. And definitely a little intimidation factor getting in your head. And, you know, you were a competitor. You were going to make it rough on the guys. There's a bag of money laying there. Everybody wants to get to that bag of money. Angel really wanted to get to that bag of money. And Georgie, 2 things that always stood out and these are things as a young rider, you're watching guys and you're learning from them and you're trying to incorporate the things they do into your repertoire. Incredible timing. Just could produce a horse at that final moment, and knowing track bias. If I was unsure if the inside was good or bad, wherever Georgie was going, that's where I was going to go. And I remember I had gotten in trouble with my boss because I rode a filly that was actually out of Dearly Precious too hard. She won by 4 or 5 lengths, and he told me he would suspend me if I got into horses that hard again, winning by daylight. Well, the next day I'm on a $25,000 claimer from my boss. And he's in front with his ears up, and I'm looking around. I don't see anybody. Well, Georgie's directly behind me where I can't see him. And literally with like 50 yards to run, and I'm still kind of looking around, and he beat me ahead. Well, that night I go back to the barn. I got yelled at again, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'll do it my way and win and get yelled at instead of getting beat like that. But Georgie just hid and just nailed me.
I got a quick story, too, since he mentioned Dearly Precious. She was a 2-year-old champion in either 74 or 75. Georgie was, Braulio was riding her, right, in the beginning. And they were at Pimlico, and the Pimlico Special, the Black-Eyed Susan. And I was riding in Philly for Bud Delp, who had only run once. She broke her maiden going 3/4, and now she's running in the Black-Eyed Susan. So Lenny Goodman had Braulio's book at the time, and Lenny came to the jocks room at Pimlico, and he says, "Hey, McCarran, come here. He says, Braulio wants to tell you something." So, Braulio, he talked very softly, and, and he just said, "Look, don't get on the outside of Dearly Precious. She tries to get out real bad." He said, "If you're in a position, put yourself in a position to get through on her because she's going to get out." Well, Lenny was ticked off at DeMauro for taking Braulio off the filly, and you rode her in the Black-Eyed Susan. Georgie did. And so it didn't really come down to that because What a Summer was very fast. She went to the lead, and the photo was so close, it took him 12 minutes to put the number up, and we beat Georgie.
Well, you got any good beat stories when you beat him? I tell you, you were a West Coast rider after your apprentice year. Was it that different riding out there than here? I don't don't know. It seems to be that it had a reputation for favoring speed in California, but I don't know if that was ever the truth.
I did have to adapt when I was riding in Maryland. I patterned my riding after a few riders who were always doing very well. My brother Greg, for one, Vincent Bershali, they called him Jimbo. He used to take horses back all the time and come from the clouds. You could do that in Maryland, but in California, you're right, the tracks are fast, and there was much more emphasis on speed. So I had to learn how to be aggressive coming out of the gate, especially sprinting. So it took some adjustment, but I caught on fairly quickly. But I have a story to tell about this guy here.
Go for it.
All right.
Here we go.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Good.
I'm going to tell my version of Angel's story about a bird that Pancho Martin had in his tack room at Belmont Park. And this, I think it was a minor bird or a parrot. It was a talking bird. And this bird could talk like crazy. And Angel kept saying, Pancho, I want that bird. You got to sell me that bird. No, he's not for sale, Angel. Oh, you got to sell. And finally, he sells him the bird. Angel gets the bird home, takes the cover off the cage, look like that, and he's looking at the bird, and the bird's like this. And he shakes the cage, and the bird's still like this. He's only got 1 foot on the perch. And he says, I'll be darned. This bird's got 1 leg. So he takes the bird back to Pancho and says, Pancho, you screwed me. You sold me a bird with 1 leg. He said, Angel, I sold you a singer, not a dancer.
Who were Angel? Well, you rode for all the greats, but who were some of your favorite characters as trainers?
Trainers? Well, I got lucky. I got to ride for all of them. But the funniest one was Frank Martin. He'll get a 3-horse entry, and he sent the 3 of us to the lead, remember? And then one day, we was in entry, and he came to the battle. He used to call niches. He said, I want you on the niche in the TV. I don't want you in the back. I want to see what you're doing in the TV. So I told him, I said, man, Pancho cannot see you, so you better smile. He wants to see us in the TV. He was a character, but he was a great trainer. He was a great trainer, you know what I mean? He was good in New York, and he went to California, and he did good. To him and Las Barrera, they was very good.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just remember when I came to this country, I was on a contract with Mr. Fred W. Hooper. Anthony Baldaro was the trainer at the time for him. So I'm 3 years contract in Jersey. All his horses was in Jersey. So 65, 66, 67, at the end of my career, but every time they get cold, like in November, around November or something, we go to Florida. I meet Angel in Florida. So we used to meet over there. He rides in New York, I ride in Jersey. So now every time we get together, he's, oh man, why don't you come to New York? Come to New York, the best horses in New York, best riders in New York.
He was abusing them poor guys.
And you are too good of a rider to be in Jersey. I have a contract, I have to wait. So meanwhile, he's doing all kind of good. So my contract is over. At the end of 68, I came to New York, and I started winning right away. And boy, he was sorry that
I tell you should go back to Jersey. They're missing you there.
He wanted me to go back to Jersey. He's the one that instigated me to come to New York. The best riders, best horses. Because I gave him a competition, and then he's like, you better get out of here.
Yeah. Didn't Fred Hoover bring over another
Braulio,
Braulio
and Lafitte also.
And Lafitte too, yeah. And Tejada, Victor Tejada too.
No, Tejada didn't stay too long.
But he brought
I don't know why.
Yeah.
How about George Tejera? Did you bring him too?
No.
Tejera? No.
Tejada and Walter Guerra.
Just those 3 guys.
Yeah, just those guys.
The Mount Everest of riders from Panama.
We're going to wrap it up here. You guys got anything else you want to add? Additions, corrections, subtractions, accusations? Donations?
I'll give you one quick story. We flew I had the bug, and we went to ride, I think, the matchmaker of the United Nations at Atlantic City. We were on a helicopter. Me, you, Angel, Jacinto, we were flying back, and the pilot didn't want to take off, and you guys were like, we don't want to get a car service. We can make it, right? And you basically convinced the pilot that we can make it, even though the pilot wasn't so sure by lifting off of this helicopter. And we're following the Garden State Parkway because it was real foggy. So we're low, following the Garden State Parkway. And a couple times, you know, do these dips, and I hadn't even flown on a plane yet, and I'm in a helicopter with these incredible riders. And they start joking about it. Jacinto goes, well, I'm going to ride Ruffian when we get to heaven. And George says, well, I'm going to ride Hawaii or whoever. And Angel said, wait a second, I only been riding like 6 months. There's nobody waiting for me in heaven.
Our thanks to Chris McCarron, all four greats. Angel Cordero, George Velasquez, Richard Migliordi. Big round of applause would be appropriate. So our thanks to the panel, and our thanks to you out in the television audience. This is your final opportunity tonight to make a donation to the Racetrack Chaplaincy in New York here. Online, www.rtcany.org. Or you can call this phone number, 516-216-5196 or 516-216-5196.
The Green Group is proud to sponsor Champions Talk and the New York Race Track Chaplaincy, who support our great community of backstretch workers. As owners, we owe our success to the people who dedicate their lives to the care of our horses. We invite all horsemen and women to donate what they can through matching programs and sponsorship to the New York Race Track Chaplaincy.
Hi, I'm Humberto Chavez, the lead chaplain and Executive Director of the New York Race Track Chaplaincy. I hope you have enjoyed our roundtable discussion here with us today. We are very thankful for Tom Durkin and all our panelists for so generously sharing their time and their fascinating stories. And we thank all of our generous sponsors as well. Whether you were in the hall with us as these memories were shared for the first time, or watching this program days or even years afterwards, we know that brought together by our shared love not only of the horse racing industry, but of humanity and those who toil behind the scenes 365 days a year. You recognize, as do we, that this community of individuals and their families who are mostly anonymous to the general public are as deserving of recognition and all that life has to offer as are those who appear in the winner's circle. We thank God for all of you who have come forward to make sure our programs have been able to continue and even grow during this time of challenge where we've navigated uncharted waters. We invite you to reach out to us at any time and to let us know how we may pray for you, support you, and partner with you as we walk together in service to those who toil behind the scenes 365 days a year to make horse racing possible. Thank you for everything you've done, and may God bless you.
The New York Race Track Chaplaincy would like to thank our organizational sponsors: the New York Racing Association, New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, New York Women's Foundation, the Jockey Club Safety Net Foundation, Thoroughbred Charities of America. We extend a special thank you to Fasig Tipton and plant manager Manuel Hernandez, Thoroughbred Daily News, TVG, Capital OTB. Thank you to our event sponsors, starting with our Hall of Fame, Peter Brandt, Brook Ledge Horse Transportation, Robert Devlin, Faye and David Donk, Michael Dubb, Len Green, John Hendrickson, Mark Holliday, Seth and Beth Clairman, Jackson Knowlton, Robert Masiello, Orphis Family Foundation, Quaker Valley Foods, Walter S. Borisnock Family Foundation, West Point Thoroughbreds, and our Champion Circle, Breeders' Cup, Elizabeth and Saul Cumin, Margaret Smith, St. Elias Stable, the Jockey Club, and all of our sponsors and supporters.